Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with me, your host. My name is Chad Medved. Welcome to the 200th episode of I'll Call You Right Back podcast. I am blown away by it. This is a monumental day in, the history of this podcast, in my life. This podcast is a big deal to me. I have my wife here. My wife is an equal participant in this podcast, I would say. Would you say that?
I don't know about equal, but I help.
You deal with it. This is a big part of my life. I've spent a lot of my life, doing this. I spent a lot of times kicking you out of our old house to interview people. Did you ever think that I would come this far?
I didn't think we would get to a point where you had your own studio space. That was something that we wanted for so long, but, until we really had the space to do it. And now you have it.
I have it.
It changed the game for you.
It's pretty incredible to see. I have to say, I was going to say that I never expected this, but I did expect this. I knew that I knew that I could get here, and I knew that I could, make it this far, but I knew it would be a grind. But we're here, 200 episodes of the podcast. It's been 4 years. I've had the opportunity to talk to an insane amount of people. We've had all kinds of wild people in our house. I just started inviting random strangers in our house one day and just was like, you better be all right with it. And it's kind of weird to think about that.
It is. But, since day one, I feel like you have grown so much as an interviewer and as a person in this industry. I think that you've shown your growth in the way that you interview folks. And I think this particular podcast is an excellent example of that.
I appreciate that. Before we get to the podcast, I do want to take a second to just, say shout out to Turner Dairy Farms, the creators of Turner's Premium Iced Tea, proud sponsor of the podcast. I continue to be, I'm grateful to be able to say that I get to work with them. I grew up on them. Turner's was a big deal. I know that you're from the Plum area, obviously. Yeah, I know you're from the Plum area. It's like you're obviously from Plum. Turner's was a big deal in your area. It's cool to be able to say that I'm sponsored by them. I feel like that's a crazy thing. It's like I made this random podcast of me talking to people, and now it's sponsored by Turner's. It's that was a point in time where I was like, this could really be some stuff, to be able to get some recognition, to have a name like that kind of stand behind what I'm doing. It's pretty incredible. But this week is the most monumental week I've had. This is episode 200. So, my eyes, I wanted episode 200 to be something that was gonna just be, something big. I obviously wanted a big name. I wanted someone around the city that was, well known, that people could, just hear the name and just be like, whoa. Not just for the, the clout, as the young kids say.
No, but I think it was for
the magnitude of it.
It was for the magnitude, but you really wanted to show their story as well and be able to portray that in a positive light.
And I wanted it to be someone, that was big. I wanted it to be a big name for a big number. 200 is an epic name, or an epic number, and I wanted to get an epic name, and I somehow was able to manifest this. And there's a very unique story about this whole situation. So this week, I have the honor of sitting down with local legend Sally Wiggin. For people that don't know who Sally Wiggin is, I don't know what you've been doing. But Sally has had a ridiculous career over 38 years with WTAE. She was a reporter, anchor. She had the Black and Gold show. And, she's
Chronicle as well.
Chronicle as well. But she's just done, all kinds of stuff. And, she's been very, very involved with, local animal shelters with animals all over the world. She's
the Pittsburgh Zoo.
Pittsburgh Zoo. She's a big humanitarian. She's a pretty impactful person. Everyone knows who Sally Wiggin is.
If you don't know who Sally Wiggin is, you've been living under a rock. But so I hit Sally up, all right, and she's like, "Yep, I'm interested." So I'm like, "Whoa, this really might happen." So once we get this all lined up, she was very adamant about. It was interesting because I didn't know if this was all going to happen. She was very adamant about her hesitation on coming over to a stranger's house during during a pandemic. Right.
She has a comorbidity. She has a heart problem that she talks about, and we're living in a pandemic. So she was openly. She had to know my vaccination status, which is cool. I'm fine with it. I'm very open with it. We're both vaxxed and, boosted, and, we believe in all that. And once I sent her all that and like things started to seem like it was going to happen, we got it on the schedule. And then that's when the research started taking it. And that's whenever you and I just started cramming and pretty much just basically looking at every single video we could find on YouTube.
Yeah.
I was Googling. I was just trying to see, she's been working for almost 4 decades. So it's hard to try to
It's like studying for a test the night before.
It's literally the most nerve-wracked I've ever been, I think. But during my research, there was more interesting things that started to happen that I felt like, was destiny aligning. So not only is she the 200th episode, and she's a legend in herself, but I've come to find that on March 17th, 2015, it was Sally Wiggin Day. They recognized it as Sally Wiggin Day. And this episode is dropping, today's March 17th. And I was like, is this really going to happen? Is this Sally Wiggin 200th episode going to drop on Sally Wiggin Day? And I was like, holy shit, this is really happening. And it really felt, it just felt like the stars were aligning. So Sally came to our home. Sally Wiggin came to our home. It was, I was starstruck, obviously. She pulled up in a whip with a trained protection German Shepherd, which I thought was,
Gangster,
call it as it is. I hope Sally's all right with me describing her as a gangster because she is, but rolled up with a trained protection dog. Like, come on now. And I was like, all right, I guess that's how we're going to roll. But, we were talking about how she was hesitant at first, and I felt it was interesting to bring this up because, in the beginning, I didn't know if this interview was going to happen. Antoinette saw that she was hesitant. She kind of came in here, kind of with her guard up.
A little weary.
Yeah, absolutely. Had her guard up. I was just, I was sitting there praying that she wasn't going to turn around and go home. But, it ended up being better than I could have ever hoped. You met Sally Wiggin.
Yes.
Sally Wiggin met our dogs.
Yes, our dogs loved her.
They love Sally Wiggin. Yeah. Who wouldn't love her? But this week we sit down and we talk about, so much, Sally Wiggin's crazy career of 38 years as a anchor, reporter, and, the whole nine. We talk about her life, how she got into broadcasting. We talk about her love of sports. We talk about her late father. And then we talk about her love of animals. And, she gets into some serious stuff too with, her addiction problems. And, it's a vulnerable conversation. And I'm, honored to be able to sit down with someone like Sally Wiggin and have a conversation at length and
share those experience and share those experience stories with one another.
It's just like, I knew that, everyone who listens to this podcast knows that I interrupt people. I have a problem with it. I try my hardest to not be, I get excited and I cut people off. And I knew that I was going to sit down with one of the greats. So I just had to sit down and let her go where she wanted to go. And I think it was a fantastic conversation. Me and Antoinette just finished listening through it. And I'm just very excited to put it out. I'm very excited that this was able to happen. I'm thankful for everyone that likes to listen to what I do. That being said, next week on Thursday, March 24th, I'm throwing a banger at Streets on Carson. If you're free, please come on down and have yourselves a good time. Good food, good people, good vibes. 6 to question mark. Right down at Streets on Carson. But without further ado, episode 200 of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with the one and only Sally Wiggin.
I gotta use the telephone.
Hello?
Telephone.
I'll call you right back. Call you right back.
Telephone.
I'll Call You Right Back podcast.
Doves weren't even created until the 1940s, maybe 1930s. No, I think it was not. But anyway, enough of that. So yeah, just talk to me about whatever you want to talk to about whatever you want to talk.
I have no hidden, sort of agenda. I don't have any, sort of things. Basically what I do is I talk to interesting people about what they do and how they got to that point in life. I think that, it's not really like I don't have a bunch of questions. I do this because I'm interested in people. I really am. I did my first interview whenever I was in 5th grade. I interviewed a pizza maker because we had a project where we had to interview someone that we were interested in. So instead, everyone interviewing, their parents, their, relatives doing things, I saw a person who was a little bit older than me, a lot older than me, probably 10 years older than me, making pizzas at a pizza place, a local pizza spot in White Oak, Veltry's Pizza, very, very well known. So his name was Mike, and I called them up when I was in 5th grade. I told my mom, I said, I'd like to interview the guy who makes pizzas down there. Interviewed him, and I kind of been inquisitive ever since.
Well, so now what do you do for a living?
For a living, I work at an engineering company. We design piping and fabrication. So I go to coal plants and I'll measure a pipe from 40 foot above, and it'll need to be at the ground floor, and I'll have to interweave it in between other obstacles and, things like that. Not terrible, but pays the bills.
Yeah, so why did you start doing this?
I started this about 4 years ago because I was afraid to kind of fall into monotony. It's easy for people to grow up and conform to the whole get married, have kids, die. And I never wanted to do that. I've always been pretty inquisitive, in my years, in my later 20s.
Where are you from?
McKeesport. Grew up in McKeesport, moved to Elizabeth in 6th grade, and I moved to Kraft and Ingram about 7 years ago, and then I moved here last year.
So what does your wife do?
My wife works at a place in the city, a bigger name place. I don't ever name it on here, but she's been there for a long time, and then she does wedding makeup on the side. So that's our life. But we have no kids, have 2 dogs.
Choice?
It's a choice, yeah. It's definitely a choice.
Young people are deciding that. I wanted children really bad. All right, let's just start.
Okay. Well, let me grab you a drink.
I'm gonna.
So
I can't imagine.
let me start you off here. I'm going to start you off with exactly how this kind of came to be. But first off, like I said, I am very thankful to have you here. I wanted to show you something to kind of just start off this podcast. Okay, so very few people I tell who I have on here as guests ahead of time. So
It's just cute. Well, I'm a reporter.
well, I know you're inquisitive as well. So we're similar of the same. So could I sterilize all these? Would you mind putting these on?
No, not at all.
That way you'll be able to tell, being away from the microphone.
That's good.
So I'm going to move this up. These are all cleaned every week. Everything is good. But so I told my buddy, your mic wasn't on. That's why. Now you can hear it now.
No, yeah.
Headphones all right?
These are very nice. Where'd you get this stuff? Did you order it? Yeah. Oh, you've got a Rodecaster. That's very nice.
I got so I came a long way. When I started this 4 years ago, I drug Rick Seaback into my second floor apartment with no AC. We were both sweating to death in there in June.
And Rick did it?
Rick did it. I'm a very persistent person. I contacted you in 2018 before the pandemic hit.
You did?
I'm very happy that this did not happen until now because
what did I say? You
were like, I'm very interested. I'm on my way to Africa, and then that's whenever the pandemic happened. So I didn't contact you again because I wanted to get my footing as an interviewer, as someone who is kind of building and perfecting his craft. So I'm happy that this came later because it's
You must have contacted me. You must have contacted me in 2019.
That might have been when it was.
Because I was going to Africa.
I think it might have been November or something around there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I went to Africa then. It was like my 7th time.
I
but
know.
It was with someone really well known, and that's why I went again because I wanted to travel with her. She was, she used to do Jay Leno for 15 years. She was with the San Diego Zoo, but anyway, that's beside the point. But yeah, so that's where I was going is with Julie, and I just came back from Costa Rica with a trip that she led, so she's become a good friend. But anyway, yeah, that's where I was heading, and then I went with a group of people from the zoo to Yellowstone in the winter to see
for a wolf
wolves.
safari.
Yes. Yeah. And I love winter.
Yeah.
I love winter and I love really cold places. And so it was a fabulous trip. While we were there, it hit.
Yeah.
And the country closed down 2 days before we were supposed to go into the airport. Everything was closing. So on March 14th, nobody had masks on, but everyone was terrified. So anyway, and then it closed down. So yeah, so I said, but anyway, so you've told me that, and you've obviously talked to people. So let's just do this.
We're already doing it.
We are, okay.
We're already doing it. It's very, very, this is a low pressure environment. This is nothing like anyone else in Pittsburgh is doing. There's no rigid format. It's just a long form.
There are no low pressure environments, not in our world anymore.
I guess that's a fair point. So I told one of my great friends, he said, who are you going to get? So I have to tell you this, I have to preface this. So you're going to be my 200th guest.
Oh my gracious.
So I wanted to have someone who is known in the city for doing great things and that has a legacy in themselves. You know what I mean? And I think someone who worked for a station for 30 some years, 38 years is, that's an accomplishment in itself, especially in the years that you've done it. And
just lethargy.
Just lethargy.
I should have left, had a chance several times and never did.
Yeah,
so.
But look at what you've built. You know what I mean? If Pittsburgh has a Mount Rushmore, whether you believe it or not, you would be up there along with the rest of the greats around here. But I do believe that everyone who puts in time like you did deserves to get their flowers.
You make it sound like prison.
So, hold please.
Oh my gosh. Oh, they're real. Oh, you should not have done that. Oh my God, oh no. Oh my God, I shouldn't do this. Ah!
So,
you know what? I have to take before.
That's fine.
I want to take a picture with us that I'm going to post.
That's fine.
But I'll post it when you're going to drop this.
This is dropping.
Okay?
Now, here's my next point. So, you're my 200th guest, which is special in itself. But, after me and you started to talk back and forth and you said that you were interested, I started to research as any great journalist would do. And I realized that, so I drop every episode on Thursday. This Thursday is a very special day. So people will be listening to this on Thursday, even though we're recording on Tuesday. So I got you flowers because
Thursday's St. Patrick's Day.
Thursday's also Sally Wiggin Day.
Well, it isn't anymore, but it
is in my eyes.
It was. What year was that?
2015.
15.
I believe.
I was going to say it was 2015.
Well, I'm gonna.
It was near the end of my career. Because my career ended November 30th, 2017.
Well, this is my world that I created, so I could call it Sally Wiggin Day if I would like to. But
I'll call you right back. Is that the name of the podcast?
that's the name of the podcast. I'll call you right back. It stems from being, everyone that I talk to about something that they're passionate about, something that they've put their life into. And at one point in their life, people, loved ones, friends called them and, I'm sure that person said, hey, I got to go. I'll call you right back. I'm working on something. So it kind of stems from that. Everyone that I talk to puts in hard work, does a lot of things. And, in times whenever we seem despondent to loved ones, really just means that we're working at, their craft and what they want to do. But I do believe that it's a great accomplishment to, have your own day. And I believe that everyone, like I said, deserves their flowers. But
I don't know why they did that. I really don't. It was very embarrassing.
Was it?
Yeah, it was.
You seem like a humble person, and you seem like someone who doesn't
I'm
like...
not humble. Nobody's humble who's on television.
I think...
No one is humble who's on television.
Humble's the wrong
and if
word.
they say, well, no, some probably would think that they're humble. But I don't think when you put yourself in a medium and want people to watch you, as hard as you try... I'm sorry, I'm eating these...
That's all right.
I'm eating these Sarah candies. Sarah's is in Canonsburg, right?
Yep, stone's throw away.
They were part of one of our chronicles. I can't remember which one it was.
I interviewed them, too.
Oh, my God.
That's all right. I'll take care of everything. Looky, you're trying to poison my dogs.
No, I know.
I'm just kidding.
No. I kept it for a while. So, I don't think anyone... You can strive to be humble, but I have watched people whom I regard as humble watch themselves on television or watch themselves on a computer.
Yeah.
And I will watch people that I would not expect. Some are not humble. I'm not going to say who they are.
Yeah.
And I watch them gaze at themselves lovingly.
Are you someone that like that?
I usually hate what I look like on TV. Always have.
What about your voice? That's usually what people dislike the most about them, I feel, is their voice.
No, I actually, it took me a long time to realize my voice in my head sounded differently from the voice that other people hear. And then in 1988, I got bronchitis really badly. Mm-hmm. And I lost my voice. And Don Cannon had an episode. Mm-hmm. It was drinking.
Yes.
And he was gone. God bless him. A brilliant anchor. So tortured. Really a brilliant man and a brilliant anchor. And he was gone for 2 weeks. And I had bronchitis and I had lost my voice. I had to anchor by myself all of the shows with bronchitis. I developed a polyp on
a vocal cord.
Yes, on a vocal cord.
Yeah.
Eventually, I went to the Voice Center, and oh God, was it Carl or Charles Rosen? Really, really good. And he said, "You've got a growth, a cyst. It was like a cyst."
Yes.
And he said, "I can remove it, but it'll leave scar tissue, and it could make your voice worse." And he said, "But that's why and it went to being real, not super deep, but then it became gravelly." And I'll never forget Robert Bianco, who was a great television critic and columnist. He's retired now, but he eventually became the critic. He was a critic here at the Post-Gazette, or maybe it was the Pittsburgh Press. You don't remember that. You're too young. But he ended up becoming a critic for USA Today.
USA.
And I loved he became a television critic. And like his critique of the last episode of Lost. You're too young to remember Lost. Lost was an amazing show, and
Did you like the episode?
Brilliant.
Or did you like the ending?
Yes, I did, and he did too. And so, but we have not corresponded. We would correspond on direct message on Twitter. But anyway, he described me as having a gravelly voice. And it bothered me at first, and then I realized that was okay. But what people don't know is it was not gravelly until about 1988. But I didn't become the main anchor until 1986. So it was only about 2 years before that episode happened, and I had to anchor when I was sick. So that's why my voice sounds like this now. That gravelly kind of, it wasn't substantially different, but it didn't have this.
Yeah, there was still like
noise.
I get what you're saying though. It's
Yeah.
like it's a voice that wasn't used as much as it should have been. You know, it's like a patina. You know, the voice gains a patina, like a nice piece of.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that.
I hated my voice at first too. Whenever I did this, you know, I especially because I did this, you know, I was terrible at interviewing. I used to just write lists of questions and ask people a question, let them answer, and me not listen to it, just prepare with the next question, as anyone in the beginning would do. You know, it's just nerves. But, you know, over my 200 episodes, I really feel that I'm, you know, coming into my own a little bit. But I have to be, you know, I'm very transparent on here. I'm not going to, you know, have you on here and blow a bunch of smoke and say that I was your biggest fan in the world, because let's face it, younger people aren't watching the news as much. I know of you. Everyone else knows of you.
Why do you know of me?
Because you're a face. You know, the same reason that everyone knows of, you know, same people that know all the other hit anchors around here.
But when I stopped anchoring, Monday through Friday, was 2008.
Yeah, but
I went to noon. But the 6 and the 11, well, I had stopped. It was 2008. They took me off the 6.
But whenever you were, you know, 14, 15, and 16,
I didn't want to do this.
Yeah, did you care about the news though?
No.
Exactly. So that's why I didn't really follow who you are. But every young kid knew who Sally Wiggin was. So I told my buddy, he asked me, who's going to be your 200 guest? Like, have you found someone? And I said, I'm working on Sally. And this is a text message.
I'm the 200th?
You are the 200th, yeah.
You already told me that, but I wasn't paying attention. I was so
That's
busy
all right.
eating these pretzels.
That's Sarah's Pretzels, that's why.
I know,
But
awesome.
I sent that text to him, and this is what I got back. Read that out for me, please.
I remember we got to meet her in 2nd grade when we went on a field trip to, I can't remember where, and it was insane. Thought I was meeting the president or something. That's so pathetic.
I'm not kidding. He's in 2nd grade, but you know, he is.
Oh my God.
That's what his first. That's
Where
what
was
his
he in
first
school?
response was. We were in he was in Elizabeth Forward school district, so probably like William Penn or something like that, I would guess. But you know, I'm sure you were somewhere. I believe I saw you at maybe at Giant Eagle one time whenever I was real young. Did you do a meet and greet in Giant Eagle or something? I can't remember where it was, but I remember meeting you somewhere under like maybe a radio tent or a TV tent.
I've had a mini stroke.
Yeah.
I was in November 2017. It's the excuse I use for not remembering
things.
anything anymore.
So we touched on it a little bit just a minute ago, but you said that you didn't want to do this in the beginning. And as I researched you,
When did I say that?
just a couple minutes ago, I said when you were 14, 15, and 16.
Oh, I didn't want to do this. No, I want to be a zoologist.
Yeah, so you were a zoologist, and then as I read through,
But I realized I was going to have to take calculus.
Yeah,
and
and
I'm like,
you said no, and then you went for
I
a
said, I'm not
master's.
going to try that. And see, I wanted an easier route. If I really had wanted to do it, I would have gone through, but I knew that I probably wouldn't make good enough grades to go to vet school because I wanted to be a veterinarian.
That's what you wanted to do in the beginning. Where did your love of wolves? Or I said, where did your love of wolves come from? Where did your love of animals come from the beginning? I'm more curious. So I knew that you were.
I was 2 years old. I can. I mean, you don't have memories of 2. I was actually 3. Pardon me. That's what happens when you drink a Diet Coke and eat too fast. We were in Canada. I was 3. I don't really have, I see pictures, but there is a memory. And my mother and father gave me, the family was gathered, my grandparents my grandmother on one side, my grandfather and grandmother on the other side. we were in Canada in this cabin, and I remember this is a vision that they gave me a plastic horse that was Lone Ranger in silver.
Ah.
And it was a horse. And see, I was surrounded by Currier and Ives of horses because my grandfather had horses. My father rode horses.
Chadwick.
They showed horses. He had standardbreds, trotters. He also had hunters like that were shown at Madison Square Garden. He came from a very wealthy family.
So
and there was no, by the time he married my mother, there wasn't, we were just, I said this once to Kitty Mouse, who was a friend of my grandparents' family. She says, well, no, you were never just average middle class, but financially we were just middle class. But my father had grown up in great wealth until the crash. And even then, my grandfather lost a lot, but there was still stuff to send him to great schools. But anyway, so, but by the time, there was nothing by the time we came along. So we just grew up in the South, which my mother hated. My father didn't really like it either, but he had a job with Reynolds Metals. It was offered a job, and so we moved south, and my mother...
Alabama.
During the civil rights movement, people say, oh, so you're from Alabama. And my late mother would be so happy to hear me say, no, I am not from there.
From Michigan.
We had to, but you know what? My parents were from New England, and they were, such New Englanders. And my mother's family went way back to the late 18th century in New England, and so did my father's. So I consider myself a New Englander, and my mother never let me think that I was from the South.
That's all right.
And she supported civil rights.
Yeah.
And I've told this story lots of times before. We went to visit my father's company, Reynolds Metals. It was one of their largest plants, and it was built when TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, was part of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was one of the projects they did to get people back to work. And Ford built a big plant. And this is when all of these northern companies were going south because it was cheap. It was cheap labor. And so my father was offered a job as one of the personnel managers of the Reynolds Metals big plant.
Yeah.
And he became very good friends with the head of that plant. Anyway, and so that's when we moved south from Michigan, where he was initially working at one of my grandfather's plants and then got his own job and struck out on his own. So anyway, we moved. My mother was horrified. She thought it was awful. and so we went to visit my dad's office. And it was on a Saturday, and we were going to meet him there. And there were these two, I do remember this. But you know what? When you're 6, how much of it do you remember, or how much is the story your parent told you about what happened?
That makes more sense.
It gets really mixed up because they say it's almost impossible to really accurately remember something that has happened.
Yeah.
Our mind just changes it. I was hearing they've been studying brains, and that happens more often. But anyway, whether it was from my mother or my father telling me this story, there were these two water fountains. One said colored.
Yeah.
The other one said white.
Yes.
Have I told you this story?
No.
You're saying yes as if I've told you this story.
No,
That's
I'm
very
just
good.
engaged.
That's very, you're faking engagement really well. I don't fake engagement as well. But anyway, I digress always. And so my mother was there, my father wasn't. And one of us drank out of the colored fountain.
Yes.
And there was a worker there. It was a weekend. And he started yelling at my mother that I shouldn't be drinking out of that fountain. And she looked at him and she said, "The water's the same."
Yeah.
She said she'll drink out of whichever fountain she wants to. That's the kind of person my mother was.
Well, that's great. So,
And no, so sometimes it was really embarrassing. She was incredibly outspoken about so much. And I would always, sometimes, I would be so embarrassed.
that's all right though.
That's
But
who
I
she
feel
was.
like it's
That's who she was.
that was a positive. That's positive though. I mean,
Oh no, it was yeah.
We're all
So
guilty.
that's where, and my high school was integrated my senior year.
yeah.
It was segregated. The federal government had ordered Alabama to desegregate their
So
schools.
through the first years of your high school, you were in segregated schools still, and then your senior
All
year,
went.
it was integrated.
I was excited.
Was it chaos though?
No. I found it fascinating.
Yeah.
And I had a crush on one of and what they did is they took, this is a small city. This is 40,000 people.
Yeah.
And they had 2 high schools. And what they did, they took the African American high school and split it between the 2 white high schools.
Okay.
And my sister and I, she was at one, I was at the other. Mother wanted to separate us because we were only 2 years apart and we fought a lot. And we still do today. They say same sex or same gender. Same gender, 1 to 2 years apart, worst for sibling rivalry.
I'm 6 years apart with my brother.
See, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
That's
it was.
nice.
It was good.
Yeah, that's nice. So they took the African American football players and split them between the 2 high schools.
Yeah.
So we had black football players.
You've always been into sports for a long time? Since you can remember?
I became a competitive swimmer when I was 10 years old.
Oh, wow. That's where it came from. I didn't
But
know.
I wasn't great.
But I didn't
My
get that in the
sister was
information.
great. I was good, but not great.
Yeah.
Except when I was on a relay. I always anchored, and I swam until I was 18. I was always not always, but by the time I was 13, I was anchoring our relays because I was so terrified to disappoint the rest of the team. I swam over my head, and my splits were always the fastest. But I couldn't swim for myself. I just it wasn't in me.
That's it's interesting.
And my sister was a diver, and Marsha had the potential to be an Olympic diver.
Marsha's your sister?
Yeah, she was an incredible athlete, and she literally, when she was 12, she went to a camp in Florida. And the guy eventually became the Olympic coach, diving coach.
Wow.
And when Marsha was 12, he told my mother, she is an Olympic caliber diver, but the only way she's going to get there is if she comes and lives with me in Ann Arbor, Michigan. He was coaching at the University of Michigan.
Wow.
He said if she comes up with me at this age, because she won't make it otherwise. And my father had just died. And my mother said no. She was amazing. My sister was an amazing athlete.
Yeah.
And yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
That's all right. I read that you had a big fascination with sports because I was trying to see a little bit of your history and like how you got into broadcasting, and I saw that originally you didn't plan on doing that, and it said that your introduction to broadcasting stemmed from your love of sports.
Yeah, I was in grad school.
Masters in
Masters
Asian
in
Studies.
Asian Studies, yeah.
What made you want to? Now, I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you just because I want to expand.
It's very confusing. It shows a mind that is not disciplined and not knowing what I wanted to do. I was at Emory University. That was my freshman year. My mother wanted me to go to school in New England. We did a whole tour of colleges in New England. There was one. I had a definite in at Brown. And at the time, it was Pembroke was the women's side of Brown. I refused. We went to visit, and my mother had a friend who was on the board of directors, and she said, "You've got it in here." And I just looked around in Providence, and I'm like, "I'm not coming here. Nope, I'm not." Well, I had a boyfriend who was going to be going to Vanderbilt.
Okay.
And he lived in Nashville. He was a swimmer. And we ended up breaking up my senior year. So it was so stupid. I made a decision the summer before that determined my trajectory. And I could have gotten, a full ride and everything. And my mother was furious with me. But anyway, so why did I start talking about that?
We were talking about you going to, you said you had an Ennett Brown, but you chose.
So I went to Emory University, and I had seen Lawrence of Arabia, which is one of the greatest movies of all time. I had seen Lawrence of Arabia in 1963 when I was a child. Why my mother took me to see that movie, I don't know. Because it's actually, even now when you look at it, it's violent.
I've never watched it, to be
Oh
honest.
my God.
I know, I got to watch it.
It is one of the greatest. David Lean made it, the guy who did Dr. Zhivago and Bridge on the River Kwai. It is still today considered, it was the film that influenced Steven Spielberg and other great directors. They talk about it, how Lawrence of Arabia was that. The only thing that now that kind of is jarring, they did not, the supporting cast were Arab. The only Arab in it was actually Omar Sharif, and he was Egyptian. Alec Guinness played King Faisal, a white guy.
Yeah, I mean, look
And
at
Alec-
Genghis
and
Khan
Anthony
and
Quinn.
John Wayne.
Yeah. Oh, Anthony Quinn, who was Mexican-American, played a Bedouin. And oh my God, Sean Connery played
in
a
that?
Bedouin. No, Wind in the Lion.
Oh.
I mean, and now today there was no way they would cast those kinds of actors. But anyway, it's still a great film, even when you criticize that. And so I saw it again. They re-released it in 1970, and I went to see it my freshman year. And I was like, oh my God, this is even better. And so I wanted to major in Near Eastern Studies, and they didn't have that. I had been accepted at Michigan my senior year and had decided to go to Emory because a friend of mine was going there, and I got really nervous and scared to go that far away from home. When you lose your father when you're 14, suddenly,
Yeah.
he didn't drop dead in front of me. He dropped dead somewhere else, and I never saw him again. It's you're insecure. And I was shy anyway. I know that sounds odd. I didn't become unshy until I'm still shy. If I have to
You think
interview
so?
someone famous, yeah, I'm horribly shy.
You come
Really,
off
really.
pretty well. You come off
When I've been
pretty
doing
well.
this, I mean, I did this for 38 years.
Well, even
So
whenever
maybe
you
40 years.
interviewed Barbara Walters in 1988, you did pretty great.
Yeah, but she made me feel comfortable.
That's fair.
No, I was terrified. I was really terrified.
How do you think I feel talking to you right now?
Oh, gee, I'm a little teeny local person in a shrinking market.
You could say
When I
whatever
came
you
here-
want.
When we came here, it was the 10th market. This is when you say you think you have an enlarged opinion of yourself. I came here in 1980.
Yeah.
And Pittsburgh immediately started tanking as a market. Bing, 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 bing. We are now 26.
26 out of how many?
Oh, well, they're probably 200.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
still
but
not bad.
when I came here, we were 10. And literally in 2 months between when I came here to interview in January and then when the new census came out,
Yeah.
a couple of months later, we dropped from 10th to 11th.
You think that was a direct result because of you being on
No,
the air?
I'm being facetious. Of course I'm being facetious. It was because that was when, industry in Pittsburgh began to die.
Yeah. Now, for you to,
But anyway, the reason I didn't go in, what happened is I knew that for me to become a zoologist or a veterinarian, I was going to have to take calculus. I was going to have to take organic chemistry. And I knew I might, with really, really hard work, be able to pull a B.
But did you want to deal with all that work?
Yeah. No, because I'm lazy.
Yeah.
And I'm lazy. And I knew that I had a gift for languages. And I did love history.
Yeah.
And so I started going in that direction. And initially, I realized I'd made a mistake in coming to Emory and I wanted to transfer to Michigan, where I'd been accepted.
Yeah.
They told me that I would have to wait, because I called them too late, that I was going to have to wait till my junior year to make the transfer. And I said, I don't want to stay at an expensive private school. And they said, well, go to your state school. I went, oh my God, that's Alabama. I said, that's the University of Alabama. Will you, they said, I said, it's not the highest rated school. And they said, if you keep your grades up, I remember having the conversation on the phone with the admissions office. They said, if you keep your grades up, and the fact that you were already accepted as a senior in high school, then you can be a junior transfer. So I transferred to Alabama, and I met a professor. I took Asian studies thinking it would have a portion of the curriculum about the Near East.
Yeah.
It didn't. It was all it was South Asia,
Yeah.
which is India, which I love. To this day, I still love India and the Far East. There was nothing about the Near East. And that's when but I had this professor who had both his master's and his doctorate from Michigan. Completely coincidental.
Yeah.
And he said to me, if you stay here at Alabama, we're going to start teaching Chinese language. It'll be the first Chinese language taught in an SEC school. And I need 5 students. And I'd love if you would be part of the petition to admissions to get Chinese language instituted here. So he talked me into staying. He said, I will ensure that you get into graduate school.
Wow.
In the field, Michigan was ranked in the top 3 in the country.
Wow.
So he did. And I went to Michigan and got there and realized I didn't want to do this, that I wanted to go. Don't ask me why.
Wasn't going to.
I wanted to cover sports.
Yeah.
I became I had been an athlete, and then I became a coach. So in summers, I coached an AAU team with 100 kids on it.
What sport?
Swimming.
Oh,
of
okay,
course.
yeah.
Yeah, swimming. And I was a much better coach than I was a competitor. And I loved coaching, but
Yeah.
I knew I wouldn't make any money. So I was talking to some NCAA stars that were from the University of Alabama, and they came up to Cleveland for the national championships. These were guys. And I was sitting up, and I hopped a bus from Ann Arbor to Cleveland, and we were sitting there, and I'm thinking, I can't do this. My choices are to go on and get a doctorate and teach, or try to get a job in the Foreign Service, which is so hard to do with this master's in Asian studies. And one of the guys said, well, why don't you go back to school and do sports? And I'd never thought of that.
Yeah.
And I said, because I was coaching, and I said, oh, that's a great idea. I'll go back and do more school and do broadcasting. That's how it happened. Sitting in the bleachers of the NCAA men's championships at Cleveland State in Cleveland. That's how the idea popped up. And it wasn't my idea. It was one of the guys I knew.
And you ran with it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I realized once I got a job at a radio station in the small Alabama town where my mother still was. She just kind of was lethargic about leaving and going back to New England, which she should have done. And I was going to go to Alabama and get a degree in broadcasting because it would be cheap.
Yeah.
And I thought about staying in Michigan. That would not be cheap because I was an out of state. So
Yeah.
I thought it'll be cheap and I'll just do this. And a guy named Tony Bruno, who became a very well-known sportscaster for a long time, he actually, that Get Up Now, but it used to be Mike and Mike, and it used to be Bruno and Golick. And it was radio. It wasn't TV. It was radio. That's how it all started. And that was Tony. And Tony had gone to Birmingham to try to break into play-by-play hockey because he wasn't able to do it at WFIL in Philadelphia. He was looking for a way to break in, and great broadcaster. And he called me up. Something had happened in northern Alabama. He was in Birmingham. This is this Philadelphia guy in Birmingham.
Yeah.
It was a bunch of guys from up north who'd come to this radio station in Birmingham. And there were 3 of them. And they were looking.
That's all right.
Do you hear what that is? Oh, I didn't mean to answer that. But that's the Michigan fight song.
I'll be honest with
My
you.
ring is the Michigan
I would have
fight
never
song.
known that.
Well, I thought I would tell you. I'm so sorry. I need to turn this off.
That's all right.
I didn't turn the ringer off. So anyway, so there were these 3 guys, and they were looking for a woman street reporter at WSGN radio. It was a top 40, but they had a really good news organization. They really invested in radio news. And Tony had called up our station where I was the receptionist. That's what I was doing to try to earn some money before I went back to get a broadcasting degree.
Yeah.
At Alabama. And Tony said, "Can you voice this?" And I said, "Sure." And so I voiced it, and I get a call from them. And the news director said, "Can you send me a picture?" Well, why do they need a picture? But they were all pretty sexist, except Tony, and which was okay. I mean, it was fine back then. And so I sent them a photo, and they heard my voice and then they saw that I had a master's in Asian studies at Michigan. I didn't even interview with them up there. They just gave me the job. I became a street reporter at WSGN in Birmingham. I literally broke into broadcasting without a single class, without any.
It's destiny.
Nah, it was. No, you know what it was? It was my voice.
Do you believe
it was my voice?
Do you believe that? Do you believe that things happen for a reason? Are you someone who believes in that? No, it's interesting.
I think. No, here's what I think. Sometimes things happen for a reason, and sometimes here's the way I'll put it. Sometimes fate intervenes. Sometimes it's random. I don't know if we have any choice of that. I sort of read that. Do you remember? What was it? It was 28 hours. Was it called 28 hours?
Oh yeah, 27 hours.
27 hours. He cut his arm off.
Yeah.
The real one.
Yeah.
Not James Franco, but the real one spoke here. And I read an article, and he talked about. Someone said, "Did he believe in fate? Did he believe in God?" And he said, "Sometimes I think fate plays a part." And he said, "Sometimes it's random."
I like
and
that.
I thought that made, so I don't believe it was destiny. It could have been random. It could have been destiny. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it set me on a path. I was thinking as I was driving here, honestly, the most appropriate path for me would have been foreign correspondent. But by the time I had one of the top agents in the country, I was lucky to get her. Initially, she turned me down. And then I stopped drinking and sent her a new tape. I went into recovery.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh my God, what happened?" And I said, "I went into recovery." She said, "Wow." She said, "Okay, what do you want?" And I started talking about, she said, "You're going to first have to do local, national correspondence work." And she said, "I can get you that now, but you're going to have to put in your time if you want to." And back then, they had correspondents that were stationed in different places around the world. Today, they just send them somewhere.
Yeah.
They don't spend the money. It was too expensive to maintain bureaus.
Yeah.
So the network stopped doing that. And then she said, of course, she said, if you become a local anchor, you'll make more money than a foreign correspondent. And I thought about it. And I went, in my head, I remember thinking this: I'm so terrified of everything that I'm just so worthless. I will be terrified to try to compete with these amazing journalists who are doing foreign correspondence work, even even domestic coverage. I'll screw up. I'll be terrified. I can't do it. And so I said to her, local anchor.
Local anchor.
Which is, I really didn't want.
Yeah.
I didn't. And by that time, I'd given up on the whole sports thing.
So
By that time, I had said, it's easier. Here's what I thought. it's easier to get into news. And if you're an anchor, you make more money. So I was completely practical about it. My dream to become, because I remember seeing Phyllis George when I was in grad school and thinking, God, if she can do it, but she is Miss America. So you don't have that, idiot. But I moved away from that because I realized it would be easier to just go into news.
And to break in a little bit.
Everything was always about what was easier. It always has been.
That's interesting.
Except
to think
the men
about
men that I married. I only married one. Except the men, I never dated men that were easy, and so that's why I'm divorced and twice engaged after that divorce, and those broke up. So that's why I've been a complete and utter failure. Never mind. Let's not go into that. I wanted kids. Desperately. And in fact, I tried with one of my fiancés. He was unaware that I was trying.
And it just didn't happen.
No.
Now, I'm curious because you say that, that a lot of your decisions were made off of, just not wanting to do the extra work. But, for someone to have...
I'm not saying I ended.
I know.
You end up working. You do.
I know. That's what I'm coming around to because it's pretty interesting to see because, before we were recording, you were talking about all the stuff that you were doing before and, the obligations. And obviously, as a Pittsburgher, you could see you making your rounds, with all the different organizations, popping up different places.
That's easy.
Is it easy, though?
Yeah, that's easy.
I mean,
what's not easy is writing. And what's not easy is going out and succinctly writing a piece that's going to air in an hour from when you finish doing the interview. That's not easy. Making appearances was easy.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair point. I'm curious because you brought it up. Now, you said that I think it was interesting that before you originally sent a tape, you said before you entered recovery, and then you sent another tape after you entered recovery. When did that happen?
The first tape, I was married. I'm sorry, I'm eating these, Sarah.
That's all right. Don't apologize.
All right. I went up and interviewed with one of the top agents in the country. She was the top agent. She and her husband were the top agents in the country. She represented local people. Eventually, she represented the national people as her husband stepped away. He represented people like Dan Rather, Diane Sawyer, Tom Jarrow. They were the agents. He was profiled in People magazine. Anyway, so she was the local side of it. Then they expanded and it got bigger and bigger, and he stepped. But anyway, so I went and I took a tape, and I went. And I was still drinking, I think. And when you drink a lot, your face is puffy. And she did not accept me. And I remember I got drunk that day when she called and said I just wasn't, what she was looking for. And that was 1983, beginning of 1983. I went into recovery. My last drink was not December. I went into actually 3 recoveries. I went through 3. But my first recovery started December 13th, 1983. And I was in recovery for 8 years. Then I drank for a year because of a guy. He wasn't a drunk, but he drank.
Yeah.
And I was nervous around him all the time, and I started drinking again. And that I drank for like a year and a half, and then I quit for a year, and then went into recovery again. Then I met someone else, another guy, and he drank, and not a lot, but it was enough to get me going.
Yeah.
And then I think I quit again for 2 years, and then I drank. I met someone who really, really drank a lot, and we dated for 5 years, and then I continued drinking for another 7. And then I finally went into complete recovery. Then I haven't had a drink since December 5th, 2012. So I've been clean. But it's a journey.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people, what have you. And so anyway, but that's why initially I went into recovery. And so then I was looking for someone to represent me. And I called this headhunter and he said, well, why don't you call Carol Cooper? And I said, she turned me down. And he said, why don't you send this tape to her now? And I sent her the tape in 1985. I'd been in recovery for 2 years. And she said, oh my God. She said, this is a great tape. What did you do? I said, I stopped drinking.
So let me ask you this. This video that you're about to see right here, this is before you entered recovery.
Oh, yeah.
Because this says the 1970s resume tape. And this was...
Now, do you see how different my voice is?
Yeah.
It's not gravelly.
Yeah.
That's what my voice was before I got the cyst.
Police have charged a Muscle Shoals man,
So-
24-year-old Ricky Creekmore, with assaulting a police officer during the conference.
When you see videos like
That's
this...
the first television. I only had been in radio
Yeah.
for a year.
So this is the first time you were on in front of a camera.
Well, this year.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
year.
I mean, like, this is like, this is the beginning of it all.
Yeah. And I had not studied it.
Yeah. And
The only thing I'd done is I had done radio.
yeah. So like, what's your approach to, being, obviously, I don't know. You hear that back then that like, it was
My forehead looks like a billboard. Now that's supposed to be, now it's okay if you have a forehead like that, but people were upset that my forehead was that big.
So this right here, I mean, what's your approach to, being asked to, kind of step in front of a camera? I mean, obviously your nerves are, they're definitely taking it into consideration, but your mindset seemed to be, from what I'm gathering now, that it's kind of just like, let's try to make this happen. Let's see how this goes. Was that kind of, your mindset when you first started this?
Say that again.
I mean, you had no experience in this. You had no education in this. I feel like it's a kind of a...
Well, I remember I had been in radio.
Yeah, you've been in radio, but that's different than being on camera.
Yeah, but I knew how to use my voice. Knew how to use my voice.
But
it's not rocket science. That's what it makes me... I'm going to sound like such a snot. It's not rocket science. It's just learn to use your voice.
yeah.
I mean, people go to school for this. What they're going to school for is learning to write. It was hard learning to write for... Well, actually, it wasn't. It was hard learning to write for radio because you really have to condense it.
Yeah.
And you're doing hits every hour, and it's got to be like you do they call them actualities. You do one sound bite and you talk around it, and they record it, and you have to do it all the time. And I had a assistant news director. He was our we covered the 1984 Republican National Convention when Reagan was renominated, and he said to me at one point, "You're able to throw together pieces really, really quickly." And I looked at him and I said, I started in radio. Then he said, "That's what it is."
That makes a lot of sense.
And it did. That's how I learned how to do that.
So, I mean, would you say that you kind of, took to it, kind of easily? Because I feel like from an outsider's perspective, watching, I did a lot of research. Watching these videos and seeing it, I would never be able to tell that you were brand new at this. I think you kind of fell into it.
Remember again, I worked in radio for 2 years, year and a half. Actually, it wasn't 2 years.
I've been doing this podcast for 4 years. If I'm in front of things, I'm still going to get nervous regardless, even though I have more, experience talking in front of a microphone.
If you listen, my voice is flat. There's not enough modulation in it. It's like, and it's weird hearing that voice because that's the voice that's not gravelly. And it's like, wow, that's what I sounded like before this thing grew onto my vocal cord. Did I take to it naturally? When you think I wasn't schooled in it at all, and I guess
I think you did pretty good.
I went from Birmingham, Alabama. My first television market.
Yeah. Small.
No.
Birmingham?
Birmingham was the 48th largest market.
Oh, I guess.
That was my first television market. We have people come to Pittsburgh who started out in, 60, 100. And they may have started in 2 small markets, and then they come to Pittsburgh. I went bingo
right
here for a year and a half to the 10th largest market. And while I was sitting being interviewed, I got a call from Atlanta saying they wanted me to be their weekend anchor. And Pittsburgh was not offering me an anchor job.
What were they offering?
Anchor.
So
reporter.
Well, how did Pittsburgh come into play even? Because if you're down there working in Alabama, how did you have any ties to Pittsburgh at all?
I will have to tell you, someone, probably the competing station, when I became their Monday through Friday anchor.
Yeah.
This was on weekends, but did I become their? I you know what? I do not know. No, because it was a guy. It was this guy.
That sounds more familiar from what I was researching.
Yeah,
that after,
it was a guy. Jim. His name was Jim something.
So you were just a regular field reporter, and then you became
the weekend anchor.
The weekend anchor.
After about 3 months, 3 or 4 months, and then what happened is the competition started sending my tapes out. That's what happens.
Okay.
They send your tapes to other markets. And so WLS in Chicago called me for a tape. I'd only been on television for 6 months.
Yeah.
They wrote back. I mean, they wrote me back and said, you need more experience. But then Atlanta got in touch with me, and actually several markets. Louisville. WHAS in Louisville wanted me as their main anchor, and I tested there.
Was that your goal, was to switch from being a weekend anchor to becoming a more full-time main anchor?
Well, a weekend anchor, you're reporting during the week.
Yeah.
You report during the week, 3 days, and then you anchor on weekends.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was just starting out, so that I wouldn't be any higher than that. I wouldn't have in 6 or 7 months become the main anchor. That's unheard of. It wouldn't have happened. Not in a market that's 48.
Yeah.
And Louisville wanted me for their main anchor, WHAS. And then another station wanted me, and then Atlanta Atlanta had asked for a tape. How did this go? And I came in, and then Pittsburgh had heard, somehow they had heard of me, and they Miami brought me down. At that time, they were not as large a market as Pittsburgh. Miami brought me down and tested me, and they offered me the 11 o'clock on-set reporter. Wasn't an anchor job.
Yeah.
I turned them down because I wanted to at least do weekend anchoring. I turned them down. At the same time, Pittsburgh called me in. They brought me in, and when I came here to interview, actually they offered me the job. They offered me the job,
right away.
Not anchoring. I was going to be reporting, but it was the 10th largest market. And I gave up on that. And what happened is they brought me in, they took me to lunch. It was John Conamikes, who at the time was general manager. In a year, he became the head of Hearst Broadcasting. But anyway, I said I wanted to anchor, like weekend anchor. He said, I think in a couple of months, in 4 or 5 months, when we expand to an hour newscast, our weekend anchor will become one of the anchors on that. And he said, I can almost assure you will. So I said, okay. And so I flew in to sign the paperwork a couple of weeks later, and I got a call from Atlanta offering me their weekend anchor job. I had not tested there, but they had gotten my tape from the Louisville station where I had tested.
Yeah.
They said, they said, don't take this job.
So in Pittsburgh, you were offered a reporter, and in Atlanta, you were offered a weekend
Now,
anchor.
remember this, Atlanta was the 16th largest market. Pittsburgh was 10.
So it
And
wasn't as big.
No. And so and then within 5 years, Atlanta's now the sixth or seventh largest market in the
huge.
country. It's huge. But anyway, so I didn't know what to do. I didn't have an agent.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do.
How old are you at this time?
1980. So I was 28.
So for you to be that
I was
age,
actually 27.
So for you to be that age, I mean, did you, now I'm just trying to figure out a little bit more about you. I mean, you had family in Alabama.
My father was dead.
Yeah.
He died when I was 14.
Father passed, mother in Alabama. Mother's name was Martha?
No, Margaret.
Margaret,
But her
sorry.
name, they called her Peggy. But she should have gone back to New England. She was miserable.
I know you said that, but for you
Yeah.
to be able
But she
to
was in Alabama,
move from Alabama up north to Pittsburgh, I mean, was that
Well,
like...
I'd lived in Birmingham, remember, for like almost 3 years. So, and that's a 48th market, so it's a larger city. It wasn't the small city that my mother was in northern Alabama.
But my point is Pittsburgh is completely something new. Like, did you have reservations about coming
No,
up here?
I wanted to go north.
Yeah.
Because I was tired of living in the
Hot.
the racist. No, I didn't mean. Well, I don't like heat, but in the racist South,
I guess that makes
didn't.
sense, too.
I did not want to be there until I came to Pittsburgh thinking I was going to New England.
Yeah.
It's not New England,
Yeah.
and I was shocked
Whenever you got here.
at some of the attitudes here.
That's interesting.
I'm not going to say anything more than
You
that.
don't have to elaborate on that at all.
I was like, oh, this is not what I expected.
Yeah. So when you came up here,
And I was very disappointed when I got here.
and that's understandable. I feel like it's important
It
to
took me 2 years, and
to warm
then I
up.
began to feel comfortable. I still kind of wish I'd gone to New England,
Yeah.
simply because it's my family's, home. But this would not have happened if I'd gone to if I'd become a reporter for one of the networks. I was offered a job at WCBS in 1986. It was the road not taken. That was a mistake, huge mistake.
CBS.
WCBS.
What's WCBS?
O&O. Owned and operated by the actual network.
Oh, wow.
And the man who tried to hire me was a man who had tried to hire me in Miami.
And you chose to not go to that route?
They had passed me over as the main anchor in 86,
Yeah.
May 1986. And there was, by that time, I was represented by Beanstalk, Carol Cooper.
Yeah.
And they had passed me over. I was brokenhearted. I was so upset. There was one man who wanted it to be me. He was the head of Hearst Broadcasting, but he did not. He told the manager of WTAE that he would not. He told him who his favorite was. And the guy didn't like me.
Yeah.
And he said he would not overstep the guy who was the manager. And so they brought in someone named Colleen Needles in May 1986. She was from Minnesota. And when they did that, they set off a clause in my contract that Carol had arranged that within 6 months of me being passed over, I could interview elsewhere and leave.
Oh, wow.
There was a clause.
Wow, there's always a clause.
And it well, not always.
Not always, but good ones are.
But that's a great agent.
Yeah.
And so I was in, it was November. It was like 2 days before Thanksgiving. And she said, you have an interview at WCBS. There's a WNBC. You've heard of Chuck Scarborough,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
WNBC.
Yes.
Then there was WCBS, and then there was WABC. And so those are owned and operated. And a lot of people, sometimes people will start at those and then they move to the network. And sometimes they don't because they're getting paid an enormous amount of money to be anchoring in New York.
Yeah.
And my grandparents had lived in Manhattan for a long time. So I was very comfortable in New York. I was familiar with it from the time I was a child.
Yeah.
So, so anyway, I'm in the office and I'm going over to interview with the man who had tried to hire me in Miami. And he was the news director. I think his name was Steve Wasserman. He was the news director at CBS. And I was interviewing for the new news anchor job. And they didn't have a new news. They were just starting it. And so he was interviewing me for that slot.
Yeah.
And then while I was there waiting to go over to, I was in her office, Carol's office, I get a call from our news director in New York. Our news director in Pittsburgh. And he said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm in New York." And I said, I can't. He said, "Can you talk?" And I said, "I can't talk now. We can talk later." So I hung up. He called back. The general manager, they said, "Where is she?" And she said, "She's not here." And the news director said, "She's on an interview, isn't she?" And so they started apparently flipping out. I came back from the interview.
Yeah.
And because it was just around the corner from their offices. And I came back and she, the news director said, "I'm flying up there now."
She's the news director from Pittsburgh.
It was the day before.
Is
It was
flying
2
to
days.
New York.
It was 2 days before Thanksgiving.
Goodness.
But back then it was called Allegheny Airlines. Well, I can't remember what it was, USA. But anyway, they bumped someone off of a Thanksgiving flight. See, back then they were smaller. This is like 86.
Yeah.
So he could get up there. And he said, "I'm coming up." And my agent looked at me and she said, I think that they're going to offer you the main job. What had happened is the woman that they brought in from Minnesota didn't like it.
Colleen Needles.
Yes, she didn't like it there. They weren't happy with her either. And she wasn't doing well in the ratings and in the research.
Yeah.
She wanted to leave. They wanted her gone. They came to an agreement and they wanted to put me in. But I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
And so anyway, after the interview, I came back and she said, "Your news director is flying here now." And one of her assistants, my agent's assistants, said, "The general manager of WCBS really loves you."
Wow.
And the news director was someone who had tried to hire me once before.
Yeah.
So, and then I remember she walked me. The news director came in, sat down, talked to her. She called me in, my agent, and she said, "I can get you a lot more money in New York." And when she said that, it said to me, they've already made an offer.
Yeah.
They want me to do the noon. This is noon news. And
In Pittsburgh.
no, New York.
Oh, in the New York one.
Yeah.
Okay,
And she said, you will get a lot more money here.
Okay.
And then I looked at her and she said, "This is what I can get you for Pittsburgh." And I remember thinking the same thing I always do. I can't do this. I can't. My mother had said to me on the phone, "I'm nervous about you being in New York. I'm nervous about you starting to drink again."
In New York.
Yeah. I wish she'd kept her mouth shut.
Yeah.
because I was already nervous that I couldn't do it. I was so shy. I'm like, I can't do this. Oh my God. I mean, Pittsburgh is like not New York. Oh my God, I'll fail. I know I'll fail, which was what I've done all my life. Like, I will screw up. This is so stupid. I can't. And so when she said to me, I can get you a lot more money in New York, and I looked at her and I said, and this was a lie. I said, I want to show Pittsburgh they made a mistake.
I love it.
But that's not why.
I know.
That's not why I did it. I did it because I was afraid. And if you ask me what one of my biggest regrets is,
Not going to New York.
yeah, because what would have happened? One of two things would have happened. I would have migrated to the actual to the network.
Yeah.
I would have migrated maybe to do reporting, who knows, maybe to do anchoring, or I would have stayed at WCBS and become bigger and made a lot more money. The road not taken, that's what it was. And people say, it used to be I would say, I would be afraid to say it was a mistake. Now that I'm older and I'm out of the business, it was a mistake. It was it was the biggest career mistake of my life, except for one thing. I got into the business to be a sports reporter.
And that's what you got.
I got to cover the Steelers.
Yeah.
And I got to get to know two of the most amazing people I have ever met, Dan and Pat Rooney. And I got to know them really well. And I love them. So, yeah, I mean, I got to cover 4 Super Bowls. 2 we lost, 2 we won.
Insane.
Yeah, and I got to do that. And I covered 2 divisional playoffs in baseball. And I covered 2 Stanley Cups. No, I didn't cover 1991. No, I mean 1992. I covered 91 and I covered
2007.
Oh, wait, was it 2007 that they played Detroit? Or was it
Or that was
2009? 2009.
Yeah.
Wait, was it 2000? No, it was
2007.
2007. Yeah, it was 2007 at Cobo.
Yeah, because they won there.
Yeah, they won there. Yeah, they won, and it was Max Talbot. He had 3 goals, I think.
I think
in the
so.
final game. I can't believe it. Anyway, I didn't mean to go. You see, there's this. My career is so labyrinthine. Even though I've been here for 38 years, the lead up to it. I mean, I do now honestly say, I was afraid to say it for a long time, but I honestly can say it was. Carol doesn't think it was a mistake because Carol says, "Look at the career you had in Pittsburgh, blah blah blah," and then, but see, now that I know that I did this, I can look back and say, I could have done that in New York too. I mean, I can look back and say, but at the time I was so terrified all the time of upsetting people. That's what happens when you lose a parent and my mother just collapsed and she was never the same. And so you're always afraid that something horrible is going to happen.
Well, let me ask you this.
I was not a very confident person.
You said that, well, it's interesting to think about that because
we've been talking way too long.
You think so? We can be done whenever you want. You're, like you said,
how you're going to edit this, I have no idea.
I'm a professional.
Okay.
You're in here with a professional as well.
What time did I come in here? 5:30, 5:45? Well, it's not that awful.
It's been an hour and 20 minutes, but we didn't start recording until an hour ago. But I know you said you wanted to do about an hour. Are you all right with going a little bit longer? Now, I'm curious because, you said that now because you're out of the field, you could say, it was the biggest regret of your life. But
I actually said it even when I was in.
I'm sure you did, but probably not as open.
When people were like Maria Shulo used to be with the Post-Gazette. Now she's writes for Pittsburgh Magazine. Great writer. She did the final piece about me. It was in the Post-Gazette. It was 2017.
Yeah.
And she did a fabulous job. It was a great article.
Well, for you to say that there was some level of regret. I mean, I feel like that, to regret something doesn't necessarily just write it off as that side. I feel like you could have, regret and love for the same decision. You know what I mean?
Oh, my biggest regret is I didn't have a child. I didn't have a marriage that was successful. That's my biggest regret.
Yeah.
That I didn't have a marriage that was successful that produced a child.
That's understandable.
That's my biggest regret.
That's understandable as well. But
And it's on me because I made some bad choices and whatever. Anyway.
But for you to, I feel like that, I've always been a glass half full guy. You know what I mean?
I'm always half empty.
I could tell.
Have you ever seen the three glasses of piss?
No.
You've never seen that? Oh,
No.
wait, I should. Go look. Glasses of piss. Do that. Okay. Look at that. It's 3 glasses.
3 glasses
of piss. It's a visual. There it is. Well, do the ones with the faces. Do the ones with the faces.
For people that are not seeing this, there's 3 glasses. There's one that says, I'm half full, I'm half empty. I think it's piss.
I'm the one who's I think it's piss. I'm half empty. I'm a half empty person, but I love that I think it's piss. That's the realist. And under the heading is the realist. But I'm not really a realist. I'm half empty. I'm the half empty person. I am. My mother would always say, you're so negative. You're so negative.
I used to get that a lot. I used to be, I definitely was a negative person a lot. I changed, my life has changed a lot in the last 6 or 7 years. I became very proud with who I became as a man. And, I think that often, as you said, you have regrets. One of my biggest regrets in my life, as dumb as it is playing football for over a decade. I have no idea why I ever did it. I seriously lose sleep about it sometimes. Just thinking about, that's one thing in my life that I just feel that
What did you play?
I played high school. I could have played college. School? Yeah, I had an offer at Waynesburg. I wanted nothing to do with it.
But did you play? You played Pee Wee football too, like when you were little?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So all the way up, captain of the varsity team.
Wow.
We weren't good at all by any means, but still, it's like I equated a lot of my decision making from high school as to making surface decisions. I just did things that, it made no sense.
But I think all high school students do that.
Exactly. But those are still my regrets that I have, even though that they shouldn't be, because no one knows what the hell they want to do back then. I regret
what I did yesterday.
Exactly. I mean, you know what I mean? But so I developed more of a positive outlook because, those were decisions that I made. I'm a completely different person than I was, a few years ago.
How old are you?
How old would you think I am? If you had to take a guess.
You're between 38 and 44.
Jesus, come on. I'm only 32.
All right. The beard. I mean, it is the beard. It is the beard, and it's the way you've got to cut. I was gonna say I wasn't gonna say 30.
To be fair, I'm an old soul. I've been told that.
30. Yeah, you know what it is? It's the beard.
It got to be.
The beard.
I'm coming for Brett Kiesel. I am. I'm coming for him. But besides for the negative, I want to get more into the flowers, so to speak, because, you could talk negatively about, the legacy that you've had as much as you would, but I want to talk about some of the fun things that happened while you were here. One of the things I want to play you, okay? And I want you to tell me what, this would have never happened if you didn't come here, but I want you to tell me what you think about this.
The search for the Polish Hill Strangler continues in the wake of the discovery of yet a 4th victim early this morning. The nude body of Arlene Dunn of Mount Pleasant was recovered from the Ohio River by Pittsburgh River Rescue. The police have been alerted to the crimes by the killer, who calls after each murder to taunt them and play the song Little Red Riding Hood.
You don't remember this?
No.
The police brutality trial of Detective...
You want to know why? This is from the 1990 classic with Bruce Willis, Striking Distance.
Oh my God, I was going to say, wait, that's not a real... No, all of a sudden, I was thinking, wait, that's not a news story. That's something... I realized it wasn't a news story. Yeah, oh my God, I never met him.
Never met Bruce Willis?
No, they did. You know where they shot that?
Yeah, probably same place you go to work.
Yes.
Yeah.
They shot it there. It was the second unit. Did
you know that was going to happen though? You knew that you were shooting that for a movie?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No. I had to test for it.
Oh,
Peggy Finnegan tested, somebody else tested, and I tested, and I got it.
And Ken Rice, I believe, right?
Ken Rice. It was Ken Rice. Ken Rice was used in another part.
Yeah, another part of it.
It was, Ken Rice was used in another part of it, like standing in a courtroom.
Yeah.
I'm actually in the beginning, and then I'm in when he kicks the TV. He puts the tape in, and then he kicks the TV.
Now, I've obviously,
the bad guy kicks the TV.
I've obviously seen Striking Distance numerous times.
I've
in my
only
life.
seen it once.
Well, I mean, I was a '90s mark. That was almost like my version of a latchkey
That's
kid.
what Bruce Willis had, or did he have a toupee?
He had just a touch of hair. It was before he made that commitment to go bald, and before he made the commitment to just have a toupee. But I, doing my research, it said, Sally Wiggin, IMDb, and I was like, what the hell do you have that's IMDb? And then it said,
you
news
didn't
reporter.
know?
I didn't realize it. I mean, I Striking Distance, the last time I seen it, I probably was sick from school in, 8th grade maybe and stayed home. But I thought that was awesome, that was a opportunity that you had. It's like, what, like, do you forget that you do stuff like that?
No, I didn't forget that. I was asked to test for something else, and some other people in the studio, at the station were testing. And, I turned it down.
Yeah.
Well, they realized they'd overlooked me.
Yeah.
And they called me. They said, we made a mistake. We would like to test you. And I said, sorry, I'm not really interested.
Yeah.
And they really were pressing me to do it because they had asked a couple of younger people in, and I was pissed. And I said, but I didn't say no because I was pissed.
Yeah.
I didn't want to even put myself out there and then have them decide not to use me because I was older. And I thought, I'm not doing it. I'm not setting myself up because I'm a lot older, having them not do it. So I said no.
That's fair. Now, as far as you being, being on the sideline of the games, I saw in some of the interviews that I've read that in the beginning you kind of got some flack for it. People
mostly from women. There were remember Facebook pages? They'd have Facebook pages. There was a Facebook page that said, "I hate Sally Wiggin as a sportscaster."
Really?
Mm-hmm. That's when Facebook was like the thing.
Yeah, now it sucks.
Facebook is like,
it's a pit.
It was for old people like me. But it's Instagram is number one. Twitter's number two.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Twitter's still.
It all depends.
And I don't
on
do
who
TikTok.
You are.
I do not.
Me
do
either.
TikTok. But anyway, go ahead. But no, there were people who really did not like me.
Why do you think that though? Just because you're a woman in a sports world?
Yeah.
Was there?
And the other thing was, a sportscaster said somewhere, if Sally Wiggin is an anchor doing sports, then I should be able to do news as a sportscaster. Someone said that. But I think that was not said in print. It was said by one of our people who was pissed.
Well, I want to know.
Pissed.
I want to know how that even came to be because you were the first one that brought that in, right, in '93.
Yeah.
Now,
it hadn't been there. Lee Arthurs was a woman who did the sports at KDKA,
but it wasn't what you did.
It wasn't. No, it wasn't. Yeah, we had an exec. Back then, they had an executive producer for programming because we still did a lot of programming.
Yeah.
And now they don't really have programming departments because they use syndicated shows and what have you. But anyway, where were we?
Sideline.
Oh.
Look at that. I'm a professional.
Debbie Cassini-Klein, who's a really good friend, is a really dear friend. She's one of my best friends now. She was the executive producer for programming. And they were starting when we had Monday Night Football. And then we had Sunday Night Football. Monday Night Football was ABC. And ESPN was Sunday Night Football. And initially they didn't have the ESPN Sunday Night Football. It was still, this was 1993, it was still Monday Night Football. NBC hadn't taken it over yet. I think it was in 2000, NBC took over Monday Night Football and ESPN had Sunday Night Football. So we still, the Hearst Corporation, which owns Channel 4, also owns 20% of ESPN. So we were able to take the ESPN. We still do. We take the ESPN games and put them on Channel 4. But that's because the Hearst Corporation owns part of ESPN.
That makes sense.
ESPN doesn't like it, trust me. And ABC doesn't like it because we blanked the ABC shows. So it was 1993, and there were 3 Monday Night Football games. And the first one, a guy named Tony Zarella, whom I still know and whom I adore. He was like 14 years younger than I was. And but I had a huge crush on him, and he wasn't dating anybody. And I thought, oh my God, I can be the older woman. But anyway, he would die if he knew I said that. But anyway, so they used him by himself and just sitting in a stadium tossing to pieces, and it was really boring.
Yeah.
And so Debbie said, she said to Jim Hefner, who was our general manager, she said, Sally knows sports. She does. She was married to a professional athlete who played college football and he played Major League Baseball. She said she really does know them. And I did, because he taught me a lot. And then I had been an athlete and a coach. So, and she said, I think she should work with Tony. They should do it together. And it was really controversial.
I bet it was.
It was controversial among our sports people.
I bet it was.
Because I was the anchor, and I'm the one who's co-hosting with Tony.
And you're a woman. I mean,
and one of my best friends at the station was not happy about it. I'm not going to say who it is.
That's fine.
The person later came to respect me. And you know who respected me after about a year or two? The newspaper people. The newspaper people. I'm not going to name them, but
it's fine. You don't have to.
They were the ones I usually sat with in the press box.
So people were real skeptical in the beginning of you. Yeah. Now, whenever you started doing this, you obviously probably knew of all the negative outlook on you. It's like, what was your mindset?
I didn't really care.
I could gather that from you, that you did not care. What was your mindset as far as, building this project into being something that withstands?
I had to study.
Yeah, I know.
I had to study. And you know what? What's interesting? Back then I've always had a photographic memory. It's not what it used to be because the mini stroke changed a lot of that. Yeah. But good for you. Good memory. But also it doesn't, you're not using it. So it's not, I could remember stats. And I knew that if I just peppered stats with my impression of an athlete, that I could come off like I knew what I was talking about. And then I would watch. I would watch games, and you remember I was married to a football player.
Yeah. So
you
had the eye for being,
And we watched games a lot because he bet on football all the time, and I was terrified because it was my money because he was unemployed, and it was my money.
Well, I would be terrified too.
And so I'm watching the game. I've never said that before.
It's funny.
That's one way I learned the game.
Well, it makes a lot of sense.
I've never said that before.
Well, this is podcasts of first, but that makes a lot of sense because like I said, I'm not I watch the Penguins here and there, but if I bet on something.
You want to know the first sport I learned to cover?
Hockey.
Yeah. In Birmingham. They had the Birmingham Bulls.
Really?
And my husband was a partner in the bar with a couple of the Penguins, Phil Roberto, who used to play with the Montreal Canadiens, and another one.
Wow.
And I knew Frank Mahowich really well. Not that well, although he wanted it to be that well, but not that well. I broke my jaw because he asked me to go home with him, and I refused, and I got in my car drunk, and I drove into a tree. Jeez. That was 1977. I was 25.
1977.
But that was the first sport, and I learned to cover it with my husband's partners, who were players.
That's a pretty interesting way.
Yeah.
That's definitely interesting.
That was actually the first sport I covered.
Did now
hockey.
Are you still someone who
And I love hockey.
You still actively watch all the sports?
More the NFL now.
Yeah.
I love hockey, but I'm an NFL person. I don't know why. I think it's because I love the military aspect of football.
Oh, yeah.
And when I mean military, it's like the logistical. It's literally like two armies, and it's complicated. And
Yeah.
I love that.
That's understandable. I think being a part
And
of
I hate to say, I'm going to say this, and people are going to hate me here. They're going to hate me.
No way.
Hate me. You know, my favorite player is.
Your favorite player? Mm-hmm. I couldn't even imagine.
Guess.
Is he a Steeler?
Guess. I'm not going to give you
Favorite
that.
player, Tom Brady.
Yes. Why?
Why?
Why do you think?
I mean, because he's from New England.
No, but that's one of the reasons. That was when my mother never saw him play, which breaks my heart.
Why
That
would you
is
love
the
it?
connection to my mother, but it's not the number one connection. Now, what have I told you today?
About what would correlate with Tom Brady?
Where did I want to go to school, but I didn't get there until grad school?
Michigan.
That's right.
Tom Brady went to Michigan?
Hell yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I like Tom Brady though. People hate on him, but it's like I don't have really any dogs in the fight. Like,
Why do they hate on him?
because he's the greatest. You know what I mean? People hate people who are, you know, the top tier of everything. It doesn't matter if
I
you're,
have really wanted to meet him.
you know, there's people that probably hate Fred Rogers, believe it or not.
Oh yeah, there are.
I'm that's what I mean, but
Conservatives hate him.
well, that makes sense. I mean, you can understand why, but it's like there's people that always are going to find a problem with with anything, regardless of how great it is. Now, for you to maneuver about throughout the city, in I feel like we were somewhat spoiled because we've had teams that have done great in everything. Pirates are hearsay, but you said you got to cover some Super Bowls, you get to cover some Stanley Cups.
I covered a division playoff.
Well, I read online that you were the only person that could go on the field before a game and speak to Bill Cowher, who would entertain any sort of conversation with a journalist before a game.
Who said that? When was that? Where was that said?
I don't know, but it was online. I would never have just pulled that out of nowhere, but that was said. That said that you were the only person that someone has ever seen that was able to go on the field beforehand and talk to Bill Cowher before a game and, basically get respect. Is that accurate?
Early on, it may have been. You know why?
Why?
Because I knew Kay.
Oh, that makes sense then. Still, though,
Later in his career, he never.
well, I would be surprised if he would have did it at all. I mean, he carries a certain rapport about him that people expect. But what are some?
When he was starting out, I think I might have done it.
Well, that's all right.
guess.
I mean, if it happened one time, that's great. What are some of your favorite memories over the past, that you've been able to be involved with? Is that something that is easy to just, touch on a few things that stick out?
Covering, because I remember running across the field. And a friend of mine was watching ESPN, and she said, I could see you running across the field. When they won the first Super Bowl in 25 years in Detroit.
Wow.
That was cool.
Yeah, you were there and you got to just experience
really
all
cool.
that.
Yeah, that was
I couldn't
cool.
even imagine that.
It was awful. It was an awful assignment because the weather was horrible. And we were driving a truck that only had one windshield wiper one of the nights. It was awful. And I was screaming at the driver, who was our one of our sports producers, like, what the F are you doing? And I'm like, oh my God, we need to pull over. And then someone else told me to calm down, one of the photographers. And I said, don't you ever tell me to calm down, or I will take that effing camera and shove it down your throat.
I would be, I have to say that I was very intimidated to have you in here.
He was not intimidated. He was not intimidated at all.
Whoa.
He said, relax, calm down. And I said, don't you talk to me that way. And
That's the worst thing to do is tell someone who is not calm to calm down. What is now?
It was also very sexist.
I can understand that, I guess, as well, too. Now, for you to be someone that covers a Super Bowl, it's like, what are your, like, what does that look like as far as like, what your obligations are? Like, do you have an idea of what you're supposed to do?
They were color stories.
Oh yeah.
I didn't interview. I mean, all of my stories. I did not do the sports stories. Now, as time passed, they would send me in. They have these gangbangs where they have a player at each table.
Yeah.
They have a player at each table, and you go up. And I would be one of the people in there, and I would go up to some of the guys I knew. And I would, like, for instance, if I went up to Ben, they're in these little booths, or if I went to Troy or Ryan, and I would ask a question. And I was always afraid to ask a question because you have people from all over the country on that Tuesday media day, which is insane. I would be afraid to shout out a question, but once or twice I did. And they would turn to me and say my name.
Huh.
And yeah, I adored Ryan Clark. I still adore Ryan.
Yeah,
Every once in a while
really
I direct.
great.
I knew that he would become what he became. The first time I met him and I interviewed him, I said, and I reminded him of that in a direct message on Twitter about a year ago. Was it a year ago? I don't remember what it is, because I said the first time I interviewed him, he was so funny and he was so smart and he was so quick. And I just said, you are going to be a star.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could tell now.
You are going to be a star. And that was his first year here.
Yeah, but now look at what he's doing and like how great of a broadcaster he is.
He's awesome.
It is. It's really cool to see that.
Awesome.
Because I like I said, I don't follow a lot of sports, but like I'll turn that on and, I didn't even really realize it until, recently kind of to see him there. But I appreciate it now as far as like someone who is an interviewer, like it's a certain skill that you have to come into. Now for you, like I touched on it before a little bit, you've had some opportunities to do some pretty intense interviews, I would guess. Barbara Walters, Bill Clinton, did you interview?
That was just a gangbang at a bookstore.
Doesn't
when
matter.
his book came out.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. But like still, that's crazy, I feel. I can I be honest with you? Me and my wife on Saturday made coffee, sat down, and I started researching.
Where did you find, excuse me, you should not have put these pretzels here.
That's all right.
Where the hell did you find this shit?
Everywhere.
Really?
Type in Sally Wiggin. You ever Google yourself?
No.
I've
done it once or twice because I want to see if somebody from another city meets me.
Yeah.
Or on these trips I take all around the world.
Yeah.
And someone will ask you what you did for a living. You're sitting at this table with all these really wealthy people that I can't compete with because I just save my money up to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Travel around the world. Because what I wanted to be was a zoologist. I wanted to be I didn't even know Jane Goodall. I didn't want to. And so that's what I've been exercising, that desire ever since I retired. But I was doing it even when I wasn't. Like I would go on these National Geographic Explorer trips with Lindblad expeditions and stuff. Anyway, when these people ask you what you do, you initially say I was in news, or I don't say I was an anchor.
Yeah.
I don't say, and then they ask you more, and then you start to say, and then I realized, and some of them were guys that I thought were attractive, and I'm like, okay, let me Google myself and see what pops up first. Because I never did it before then. Yeah. And sometimes I'm happy about it, and sometimes I'm not.
Yeah.
See,
I mean, it's
once in a while I've done that, but I don't do it like that. I didn't know that all that stuff is out there.
Well, for me, I mean, I watch the videos of like your resume and like Pittsburgh Dad talking about you. And then you even have videos.
Oh, those guys.
Yeah.
Fantastic. They're like my children.
Kurt Wooten. He's a great guy.
Well, Chris Prexto.
See, I don't know him. I don't know him as much. Kurt Wooten
they created it together.
I know that, but I don't know him as
brilliant.
much.
Chris is brilliant.
He got to be brilliant. I
love them. They're like, we did. I don't know if it's online. We did.
There's a behind the scenes video online.
They asked me to do this with them. Do you remember? You wouldn't remember the show. You're too young.
What show?
It was a show called Perfect Strangers.
I remember the name. I don't remember the show.
I don't know where this exists, but it may be on their YouTube channel. We did it. It's awesome. We did. It was Chris and Kurt's idea. They're so brilliant. They're very different guys. They're very different. But they've been, great friends for a long time. And we did the opening, literally shot for shot.
Yeah, of that.
Of Perfect Strangers. And I mean literally, like when we go through this
Frame by frame, yeah.
exactly,
Angle by angle.
And I had to change clothes, and I had to change clothes in the stairwell of a parking garage outside of Heinz Hall, and Kurt was, or it's Chris. I said, you have to stand there. Don't let anybody come through here, and don't peek down here. And I was yelling at them, and it's like, it was so much fun.
Seems like it would be a fun experience to be involved with that.
Yeah,
they're fun guys.
They're really good, and their wives are amazing. And anyway, I miss them. I haven't seen them for a long time because of the pandemic. But anyway, so yeah, those guys. Why would I start talking about that? But anyway,
we were tangential on here. That's the way it goes here. Now, okay, so
I gotta stop eating these. Take these away from me.
That's all right. Sarah's pretzels are addicting. Okay, so now for you to, I'm going to wrap it up for you. I know we're getting to the end here.
No, I'm the one who's talking too much, but I'm thinking
you're not talking.
I'm hoping I'm taping. What is tonight? This is Wednesday. No, this is Tuesday. What's on tonight? What do I start? When am I supposed to start watching? I watch New Amsterdam. I watched that.
I don't know what that is. What is?
I watch too much TV.
Now for you to, well, you're retired now, so I did
it when I wasn't.
Well, this was my next question. It's like whenever you're not an anchor, whenever you're not, in the media, broadcasting, things like that. Now, before you retired, it's like, well, you were involved in all these different things. I'm sure you're still involved in things. Obviously, the world is different because of the pandemic as well. But what do you do in your free time besides traveling? And I know you're a big animal advocate.
It's interesting. I'm still mostly involved with the zoo. I would say that's become, like I said, I cycled. I went onto the advisory board of 2 organizations, which takes me out of a lot of meetings. I'm still on the board of the Caring Foundation, the Caring Place. I became involved in having Highmark found the Caring Place because it's about children who've lost a parent.
Yeah.
And I lost my father when I was 14, and it changed my life. I mean, It really, really negatively changed my life. I had no one to talk to. And so I'm still deeply involved with them, most deeply involved with the zoo because I wanted to be I care deeply about wildlife. I always have since I was little. And I'm still, like I said, on the advisory board of Humane Animal Rescue of Pittsburgh, and oversaw as a board member the merger of Western Pennsylvania Humane Society and the Animal Rescue League. What I do most of the time in my free time now, so I do, I go to board meetings. I'm a docent at the zoo, which we don't have any board member who's ever done that, who's been a docent. A docent is someone, you take a course for 3 months and you can choose to, take animals to birthday party, to classes or what have you. Or the reason I did it, I came back from South Georgia and the Falkland Islands. And I'd been to Antarctica in 2008, but I went to South Georgia, which are the islands above. The Falkland Islands here's Argentina, Falkland Islands are here, South Georgia's here. So I'd been to Antarctica in 2008, but then in 2018, it was one of the last things I did. It was my last trip before I was done. I went there. And there are lots of penguins there. And I love penguins. And when I came back, I was talking about penguins. And a friend of mine said, why don't you can help feed the penguins at the zoo without becoming a docent. And I said, that's not fair. I need to become a docent. And so I need to become a docent and go through the 3-month class so that I could do it. And it's the only reason I did it. So I am the only board member who's also a docent.
The only board member. Now,
Of the zoo. And I've been a board member of the zoo since 1995 when I got back from Botswana. I requested to be on the board. I had never requested to be on the board of an organization.
so do you know Jessica Rees? She's a penguin handler.
How do you know Jess?
That's who I'm going to be talking to at the zoo.
Oh my God. Jess is like, I think of Jess as the person I would want to be my daughter.
Really?
Oh my God. She's one of my favorite people.
Well, put in a good word for me, please.
Oh my God. She's amazing. She's also, is she going to be here?
I'm going to the zoo.
She's stunningly beautiful.
Well, that's fantastic. That's a great plus. But
And she's so smart. She went to Penn State, I think.
I think that is right. But yeah.
Oh my God. When are you doing that?
The 30th. I'm going to talk to Kathy, who does the big cats. And then
I know Kathy really well.
And then Henry.
Oh, Henry's been at the zoo since the beginning.
I know, that's what they said. They said that he's probably the most notable person.
He is, and he's very funny. He's in the commercials. You've seen him in commercials.
Oh, yeah.
He's a reptile guy.
It'll be a good time. I've been working to get them for a while.
Oh my God, they're so amazing, and Jess is awesome.
I do all this stuff for
and so is Kathy. I've known Kathy for a long time.
I do all this stuff. You know, you asked me in the beginning why I do this stuff, and it's because, you know, we all get stuck in this, like, you know, monotony of real life. You know, I work what I do in engineering until I do this full time, and then, you know, this is my opportunity for me to meet you somewhere. Like, let's say I saw you in Giant Eagle before the pandemic. It would be weird for me to grill you for 2 hours about, you know, what you did in your life. You would think it would be weird. I've spoke to funeral directors. If I met them at a bar, you know, she's
I've been interviewed so many times. I don't find it weird.
I get it, but you know, for 2 hours for me to just ask you the same things over and over and over that you've asked.
I've had people talk to me for this long.
Yeah, but if you were not planning it, and I just met, I guess you would consider some of us fans. You know, if I just came up to you, it would be kind of strange.
See, I don't consider you a fan.
No?
No, I wouldn't have done this if I did.
Well, that's good.
I probably would.
I'm not a fan. I'm a journalist.
I probably. I am so excited. Those are three of my favorite people. There's so many favorite people there at the zoo. I have a love-hate relationship with zoos.
Me too. I haven't been there since I was a very young kid, and that's a reason that I am trying to talk to people because.
But at the same time, without them, some of these species wouldn't be
100%
here today. A, B, you need to educate people just watching an animal on TV. But at the same time, I think most people are ambivalent, but I never thought I would love penguins so much until I came back from the Falkland Islands in South Georgia.
I saw you did that.
And that's when I got involved and said, you know, someone said, well, you can just go and visit. You don't have to become a docent. And I said, that's cheating. I have to become a docent.
If I get to meet a penguin because of this podcast, it's going to be
I'm not
insane.
sure they'll take you back in there. They might bring one of them out.
Well, regardless, if I meet an animal because of this, you know, for me to, I'm going to get back to what we were saying before, but my wife on Saturday, you know, I'm researching this stuff and like, you know, she's like moved to the point that this is something that I created this on my own. I have no networks. This is literally all me. Never had any schooling in this. And I've built this.
You ask good questions.
I appreciate that. Coming from you, it's very, you know, that means a lot to me, but it's like, it was
But you let me talk too long.
Well, that's all right. Sometimes I'm still.
You're going to have a shit show trying to edit this.
I've episodes that are above 3 hours.
Oh my God. Well, we have to end because I have to get home.
We're going to end right now. But before we end, you know, I might urge you to come back in here another time after, you know, we talk, because I want to hear some more of your travel stories. And we haven't even got into how you went to the Great Wall, flying in a fighter jet.
Oh God.
You know, things like
vomited.
these. I bet you did.
I would. The Thunderbirds.
1,000,000% I would throw up. I can't even ride a roller coaster anymore.
Well, I didn't throw up until after he gave me the stick. I did not want the responsibility, and that's what made me sick.
Oh, I bet.
I was not anywhere near throwing up, and then he gave me the stick, and I did it for a while, And he took it back. I said, please, you need to take it back. And I opened up the bag and threw up in it.
What do you think is the most nervous you've ever been with an interview? And
Ted Koppel.
Because
he didn't want to be interviewed. And I could tell. And he thought I was an idiot. And I was trying to make him laugh because I had read that he had a great sense of humor. And he knew I was trying to make him say something funny, and he began to say things that were inappropriate that I would not be able to use. And I thought, I fucked myself. Why did I do this? He knows exactly what I'm doing. And so I began to ask him about the history of television news and what is wrong with today. I began to ask about a topic I knew that meant a lot to him. Totally changed. It was nothing that anyone wanted to hear at our station, but it's what he wanted to talk about.
Yeah, to him.
It was very hard to edit it for a piece.
Yeah, that's so.
And it was, if I should have started out that way. And I started out with our stupid news director's questions that he wanted me to ask him, and he was pissed.
Yeah.
And I thought, boy, what am I? And you can see his body change when I started asking him
the real things
about
that he enjoyed.
What the role of television in today's news landscape was, and just television in general. And you can see him lean forward toward me. Not in a sexual way, but lean forward toward me. And he put his, and when you look at it, I brought one of the editors in. I said, see this? This is the mistake I made. I let a news director tell me what to ask when I knew that that's not what he wanted to talk about.
That's an interesting thought, for you to be an interview for a station. Like, obviously, this podcast, I could do whatever I want with this, air whatever I want. But for you to prepare for an interview, how much of that was, yours?
Depended on the news director.
I guess that would make sense.
Depended on the news director, and it depended on whether he wanted to mess with me or not.
Now,
and there was one who just did not want me, did not like me, did not want me.
Well, it didn't work. 39 years.
Well, no. He got what he wanted. He eventually got what he wanted. He did.
Well,
in 2008, when I was taken off the six for somebody else who doesn't work in television anymore. Well, at least doesn't work in local television anymore.
Well,
and that one, I can't talk about why that happened.
That's all right. Don't talk about it. I think
it was completely, never mind.
Don't even go into it. But I just want you to know that, from an outsider's point of view of things, from what we've gathered today from me talking to you in this tangential, chaos of a conversation, I really love who you are as a person from what I've gathered. I like the person that...
I'm an asshole.
I love it. I'm kind of one too.
I'm not an ass. I'm really not. I've become one as I've gotten older. I was not like this when I came. I was terrified all the time. I still am today.
Well, you put on a good show.
No, but I'm what happened to me in 2008 was shattering because it was unfair. It was because of inappropriate behavior, and it cost me my main job. My job is the main anchor. I've never gotten over it. And somebody said, you should just get over it, get past it. I don't think I ever will.
Who's to say you should?
Well, you should. You should really. And you know what? I've had a great life and what have you. And I have this. All of the ones who are working now, we're a much smaller market, but I made more than any of them. So that's my revenge.
There you go. And that's the perfect way to go about it. Last question, and then I'll get on to the ending segment. Last question. Who is the most starstruck you've ever been?
God. Maybe Ted Koppel. Oprah.
I was going to say.
But then it wasn't Oprah because I interviewed her 2 days in. I interviewed her 4 different times. The last time it was about her movie that failed miserably, Beloved. It was the second day. I had interviewed Jonathan Demme, the director, and then I interviewed her. And she knew that I'd interviewed her before. And we started talking about film. We started talking about cinema. and I stopped talking about trying to do things for the piece. An hour later, I was the last person. We're still talking.
Really?
And they said,
button it up.
Oprah, you have to. She says, no, she said, let's just shut it down. And I just want to keep talking. And so we kept talking. Yeah,
Wow.
we did. And so, and I interviewed her. By the last time I interviewed her, she knew me.
Yeah.
She knew me.
Yeah,
Because they would be called local gangbangs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw clips where she mentions your name online. That's on there.
What?
Oprah. She mentions Sally Wiggin. It's on a YouTube video.
Really?
Oh yeah, believe me. It promise.
Oh, you know what? They did a heart show. They did a heart show, and I was supposed to be there in the studio audience. I had unstable angina the night before I was supposed to fly there. No, 2 nights before. Well, no. They tape and then they show 2 days later.
Yeah.
I had unstable angina, had to be taken by ambulance to Presby. I could not fly out for the taping. So they taped me when I got back to the station, and they sent it there, and it was incorporated. And she says, thank you for that, Sally. You could tell she knew me, A, because I'd been there, I'd interviewed her before, but B, she knew that I was not able to come because I'd ended up in the hospital with a heart problem, it was, like I said, unstable angina. And it was about heart disease.
Yeah.
So we shot the thing and then sent it.
Huh.
That's
pretty
probably what that is, I'm guessing.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, so ending segment that I do with all the guests. It'll be quick. Okay, the ending segment is something I do called...
This is now how long? I've been here for... I got here, we started at 6:40. No, we started at 5:40. 2 hours. This has been 2 hours.
I know, and you said that an hour is too long. Rick Seaback, he said he felt that people did not want to hear about him, so he was like, "We got to stop this interview." And then I took him to lunch after. But okay,
how long did he talk?
An hour and some.
Oh God, I've talked for 2 hours. This is awful.
No, this is everything that I could have ever. For me, this is a big deal.
This is awful.
Ending segment that I do with all my guests is an ending segment called Desert Island Questions. Okay. Desert Island Questions.
This is very clever.
This is an ending segment that I do where I give each guest 3 categories to take on a desert island to use until they starve to death and die. First category, 3 movies. So envision this. You get a DVD player and you only get 3 movies for the rest of your life to watch over and over and over again.
Lawrence of Arabia.
I'm going to watch it now, me and my wife, because you have said that.
It's 3.5 hours.
That's all right.
Seabiscuit.
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
Remember, I love horses more
I do.
than anything.
I do.
Megan Levy.
That's a movie? Mm-hmm. When's that
from? I saw it with a friend of mine who died 2 months later. Kate Mara, Rooney Mara's sister.
Yeah, I know who that is.
It's about, she plays the woman who was the handler of a German shepherd, her dog. It's a true story. Her name was Megan Levy.
Oh.
And she was the handler of a German shepherd dog in Iraq.
Oh,
or was it
wow.
Afghanistan? It's a really good movie. It's a tomato on Rotten Tomatoes. It's one of my favorite films. It's either, it's Seabiscuit. It's Lawrence of Arabia, Seabiscuit, which was nominated for an Academy Award.
Yeah.
Hold on. No, Megan Levy I love, but it's not one of my favorite films on a desert island. It's because it's about a dog.
Yeah.
Seabiscuit, yes, that was nominated for Best Picture. My second favorite movie after Lawrence of Arabia. Mad Max Fury Road.
I saw that in an interview. You said, I love Tom Hardy.
I love Tom Hardy.
And you think that if you ever had a biopic made by you, Charlize Theron should be your...
No, she's too beautiful. Oh my God.
Well, you said it. Those were your words,
Did
not
I
mine.
say that?
I think that would be...
Did I say that?
You did.
Oh my God. It's when they have a prettier person than the actual person is. So yes, she's a great actress. She's a great actress.
She's in a lot of really great movies.
She did not, I just bought the book about the filming. They've written a book about the filming because it was insane, the filming. It should have won the Academy Award for Best Picture. Most people say that today, that
I haven't seen it.
It was that Revenant was not as good. Revenant was the same year.
Revenant
I think
was
it was
a great
Revenant.
movie.
Yeah, but this was how they made this movie and what was it? Soderbergh.
Oh yeah.
Steven Soderbergh.
Yep, Steven Soderbergh.
Said when he saw it, he thought it was impossible that they had made that movie without several people dying. Because it was so
crazy.
Yeah, it was so crazy that the stunts were impossible.
You're a big cinema person, huh?
Oh yeah, love movies.
I saw that
when I was little, really tiny little, I thought I wanted to be an actress, and then that went away.
I saw that
animals became more
in your interviews. You said one of the things you miss most about is going to the theater to see movies.
But now I don't miss it. I can watch it on my TV.
I love it.
I don't miss
Honestly, I went to the theater a few times, and there was about 3 people in the total theater, and that was on like the opening night for Scream. And I like going to the movies by myself.
What did I see? I go all the time by myself. What did I see recently that I really liked?
I want to see the Batman.
I thought it was good.
You watched it?
It's not great, but it's good.
Yeah, I've heard that it was even better than
It's
the Dark
because I'm
Knight.
a huge Christian Bale.
Yeah,
nothing's better than the Dark Knight.
I know, but I heard it was also different. People said it was like a crime thriller noir.
It was. Dark Knight is a great film.
Yeah.
And mainly because of Heath Ledger. But anyway, you said what my third movie is? I said Mad Max Fury Road. Yeah, those are my top 3.
Okay, second category. I usually ask people 3 books to take with them on a desert island, but I would like to ask you 3 of your favorite places you've ever traveled.
God, it was hard. It'd be hard for me to pick 3 books.
I bet.
I simply because I don't remember them.
Are you a big reader?
Not as much as I used to be.
Yeah, me either.
Not as much as I used to be.
I never understood why I asked that question on here. I think that there was something better, but...
So what was it? What did you say?
3 places to travel. Your 3 favorites.
Botswana. In the Delta. The Okavango Delta.
Is that where you saw the gorillas?
No. The Delta is where you see elephants and...
Okay.
lions. India. Seeing a tiger in India outside, that was even more important for me than seeing elephants in Botswana. And there are lots of elephants in Botswana. I've been charged by an elephant. The first time I went to Botswana, it was a horseback safari. And we were charged by an elephant on horseback. We were on horseback.
That's pretty
That
wild.
was pretty cool. So yeah, I would say Botswana, India, the safari in India, seeing a tiger when there are like 50 Jeeps waiting to see a tiger. It's too many tourists and the tiger comes out of the forest. It's amazing.
I bet it is.
It's amazing. And I got a shot of it and he came right toward our vehicle with 50 vehicles. And I mean, it's just awful. There's a Nat Geo photo just recently of this tiger running across a road and you can see like all of these Jeeps,
Yeah.
of tourists there to see it. It's awful. But anyway, so that was an experience. One of my favorite animals. My favorite animal is the elephant. My second is a horse. I've had several horses and now I'm back riding again, but I don't want to own another horse.
It's a different burden.
I love African painted dogs. That's my elephants, then African painted dogs, then horses, then real dogs, then wolves. I would say, what did you say? The
Africa?
We said Africa.
You said India, Botswana.
India, Botswana in Africa, India, tigers. Just recently, Churchill, Manitoba, because I love the snow.
Yeah.
Polar bears.
Polar bears. My goodness.
I love polar bears. They're
All
the
right.
canary in the coal mine.
Canary in the coal mine.
Once they're dead, we know that the climate is irrevocably changed. And they're going to lose their environment, and they're backed into an evolutionary corner. They cannot adapt. They cannot adapt fast enough to find prey other than seals. So they will become extinct. There is no question.
I know it's terrible to see them pictures of like, polar bears that are like skin and bones and stuff.
Yeah, it's awful.
Terrible.
So, yeah, I would say polar bears, but it's really hard to choose.
I know. That's fine. I'll third category. I'll move it along. Third category, 3 CDs.
This is taking forever.
Well, you're making it take forever. 3 CDs though. Or I'll let you pick artists to make it quicker.
3 CDs. I don't listen to music
You
that much.
don't have 3 artists that you like?
Yeah. Oh my God, I don't listen to music that much.
I got a song that you'll love.
Oh, I hate that. But I love those guys. I love that. I love those men. I love those 2 men so much. They're like my children. If I had children, it would be Michael and Bob. Okay. Music, singers. Oh God. Leslie Odom from Hamilton.
I still
love
have not
him.
seen that yet.
Oh my God, I love Hamilton. God, Adele.
Yeah.
Oh, don't laugh at me because they get criticized so much, but I love them. Coldplay.
There's no laughs there.
People make fun of them all the time.
That's all right. At least you didn't say U2. Okay, so third to last question. If you have to pick a last snack to have, you're getting ready to go on a road trip. What's a snack you get from the gas station?
Those little peanut butter things with chocolate on them. Not Reese Cups, the Buddy Buddies.
Oh, Nutty Butters.
Nutty Butters. Yeah, it would
so
be a
good.
Nutty Butter.
In a freezer is a different world.
Yeah.
Second to last question is the death row meal. So that means that before you die, you get one last meal. You get an appetizer, main course,
That's
and a
disgusting.
dessert.
I don't even want to answer this question.
Really?
Because death really terrifies me.
It is the most. I sometimes lose
Because
sleep over it.
I'm certain I'm going to hell.
You think?
Because I'm a horrible human being.
Oh my God! Come on now.
No, trust me, I am.
I think.
I have horrible. Anyway, you say death row meal. Oh God, that's so dark.
Okay, what about
Wait, well, no,
favorite
I
meal?
can do it. My favorite, a death row. God, I can't.
appetizer?
No, my favorite meal. And I don't like to eat pigs. I love pigs. They're very intelligent, so I don't like to eat them. But I would say my favorite meal is I think barbecue ribs.
Oh,
No, I don't want it to be meat. No, I don't want that. I don't
No?
want to say meat as my favorite meal. Oh, I know what it is. Oh, unfortunately it is, but it's beef. It's beef. Corn dogs. That's
Corn
my
dogs.
favorite meal.
Kennywood corn dog.
Yes, that's exactly it. Kennywood. That's my favorite meal. That's
Talking
my
to
favorite
Kennywood
meal.
on Sunday. They're coming on here
Kennywood corn
too.
dogs. Yes.
I'm going to tell him that whenever I interview him.
They
on
know
Sunday.
that. They know.
Well,
They
I'm gonna
know.
Make sure
Yeah.
he knows.
They know.
Okay, last question. If you could have a conversation with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and why? And before you answer, it could be a loved one. I assume that's, maybe your
Oh,
father.
I never thought about that.
But if
it would
it's-
be my father.
If it's not a loved one.
No, it would be. If it's not it would be my father. If it's not a loved one,
Yeah. Anyone you want in the world.
Abraham Lincoln.
You know who just said that was, I cannot remember who said that. Maybe not Josh Getzoff. Some people, but that's a great answer. Abraham Lincoln would be a great answer. I just brought up, that might've been him. We were talking about Daniel Day-Lewis.
One of the most remarkable leaders in human history. And he wasn't a perfect, African Americans have said that he was too willing to compromise on things that were important. And I do understand that viewpoint.
Yeah.
But without him, God only knows what this country would have been.
Yeah. And imagine the environment that he had to be
He
back
had to
then.
make compromises
Yeah.
that were that today would be
I know it's a whole different
be
story.
savaged by them, but
Whole different story, but that's it. You made it through. After you told me you only wanted to talk for an hour, we went longer than that because I'm a professional and I could, I knew it was going to happen. But I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart.
you know why?
What? The Coke,
Caffeine.
Diet Coke. I stopped drinking.
If I hadn't had that, it would have been an hour.
This is the first one I've had in a week, and I've been.
You started asking me questions about my life, and my life is not simple.
I know it's not, and that's why whenever you said I can only got an hour, I started to get that hot flash where I was like, oh my God. But I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come over and talk to someone like me about.
What do you mean, someone like you? You're really good. You're a good interviewer. You are.
I appreciate that, but podcasts are weird. There's a dime a dozen. People could say no, I've been turned down by people, but this really is like something that I'll never ever forget.
Oh, please.
I'm not kidding. I'm really not kidding.
I'm just a little bitty local anchor who's retired.
Who made
It's not a big deal.
who made a pretty damn big name for herself while she was here. Whether you want to believe it or not.
In a shrinking
Oh
market.
my God, who cares about the shrieking market? But listen, please, I would love to have you back sometime eventually. We'll try to make that happen. But everyone else that's listening, 200 episodes down. Sally Wiggin, 200th guest. I'm honored by it. The party that I'm throwing at Streets on Carson will happen next week on Thursday, March 24th. I rented out the place. It's going to be a celebration. The who's who of the city will be there. I hope to see you if you have some free time. Thank you for listening, and I'll call you right back.